She should fill the whole thing.
Well, you're gone.
Yes, thank you. You got to get it in the middle. Thank you. Great. See all those ribbons? Those blue ribbons are all around for all the people in Maine who have died.
Welcome.
With COVID.
Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you come with, wherever you are going, you are seen, you are heard, you are welcome, you have always belonged. For thousands of years, Indigenous people have walked on this land on their own land. Their relationship with the land is at the center of their lives. We acknowledge these lands upon which we worship as the ancestral, cultural, traditional, and unceded lands of the Wabanaki Confederacy of the Endakana people. We commit ourselves to the work of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Been in reaction mode, and we need to be intentional now to rethink of much of what we used to assume. Rethinking is exactly what calls us to every day. Rethinking how we view creation, not as a resource or even something that's just beautiful to experience, but rather as kin. Jesus spoke of the kingdom of God, and that was more than just humans that were hearing him. All is within God. How can we kin the earth? Let's worship and celebrate as we discover that together. And let's stand together if you're able and sing the hymn, Earth and All Stars.
Sing
God, it is praises that we come to you with now for all that surrounds us, all that is kin to us, earth and stars, all of those things that we create and all of those things that we are. God, we bring them before you today. And indeed, it is praise. Through tears, sometimes we sing those praises. Sometimes it is with laughter. But God, it is all for your amazing love. Be with us as we remember that today, as we are sent out in that today. All this we ask in your name. Amen. If you're standing, you may be seated. This month is National Recovery Month. It is the time, I hope, that we can remember all of those who are in recovery and who celebrate that they are in recovery. And of course, all of those who are still struggling with addiction. And we'll remember those in our prayer as we begin our prayers of the people later on in the worship. And this, for some of you, this is very close to you. Some of you may be in recovery yourself. Some of you may have family members who are in recovery, have good friends. Some of you may be struggling with family members and friends who are struggling with addiction. I know we've had folks bring those names to us so we can remember them in prayer. And it's very close to us as a congregation because we took a stand a few years ago and said, those aren't addicts, those are our neighbors. Those are our beloved. And we remember that all the time as we do the simple things that we can do to support the Men of Courage House. And I asked if some of them would come today and tell us about the place that they're at right now, where they are. And their life, I feel like their life with us, and their life together. So Jake and Josh, would you come forward and share with us this morning?
Hi, my name is Jacob Haskell. I live at the Courage House over across the street. I just want to talk to you folks about a little bit about my story and what addiction and recovery means to me. One of the biggest things I want to talk about today was the stigma associated with addicts, like the parents' addicts. I feel like a lot of the time when you see someone in addiction, it's assumed that they're a bad person or that they must have been brought up wrong, and somehow it's like the parents' fault sometimes. And although sometimes that may be the case, a lot of the times it's not. There isn't really one cause of addiction. It's a disease that picks its victims at random. I was very fortunate growing up to have two of the best parents anyone could ever ask for. My dad coached me in football and baseball all the way up to 9th grade. He was big in the community. And my mom was and still is one of my best friends. They never did or condoned any use of drugs while I was growing up. My grandparents are very involved in my life as well. I went to Sunday school every Sunday growing up until I was a freshman, when I thought I was too cool to keep going. My aunt on my dad's side is actually a minister down in Tennessee, and my aunt on my mom's side is actually the chaplain over at MCC in Windham. So like faith and religion were two big pillars for me growing up. Growing up, I was good in school. I played sports. I was a pretty popular kid, but I'm sure you know high school when you get older is kind of an awkward place, and you just kind of want to fit in. You kind of look up to those upperclassmen, guys that are always having fun, getting the pretty girls, so you kind of hang out with them and do what they're doing. And high school is where I had my first interactions with drugs and alcohol. And yeah, I lost my priorities at that time. Instead of focusing on sports and school, I focused on trying to get with girls and trying to be funny or cool in class. And yeah, so high school wasn't great. My first couple of years, I did kind of have a wake-up call. After one party my junior year, I got really drunk, and I thought I was going into my friend's house, but I ended up passing out in some random person's living room. So the police woke me up, and I went to Long Creek for that. But after that, I started doing better, and made the honor roll got back into football. And it was around this time, like the 2008, 2009 housing crisis. And I took my SATs and I was in the top 90th percentile, and I was getting a lot of scholarships. But like my parents were kind of like arguing like behind closed doors about like how they're gonna pay for it and if I was gonna be able to go. So I came up with a brilliant idea to sell weed because I wasn't doing drugs at the time. And I ended up getting arrested for that 3 months before I was supposed to graduate, and I did 2 years in Long Creek.
For weed.
After I got out of that, it was kind of like an awkward place for me, because all my friends growing up were either at college or like in the military, and I didn't really know like who to hang out with, so I probably fell into the group of people that I probably shouldn't have. And one time, this girl that I was growing up with, she was a beautiful girl. She was one of my best friends growing up. She did lacrosse, basketball, soccer. She was at USM, probably one of the most normal people you'd ever meet. She asked me to borrow $40 one day. And I asked what for, and she said for an Oxycontin. And I said, sure, and I gave her 80. I said, get me one too. I remember we were in the car, and she took out a needle and a spoon. And I was kind of like shocked at first. So like growing up, all you hear from people is that drugs are bad, and that people that do drugs are bad. Like, and that if you're gonna, like, I was expecting, like, if I was gonna get offered drugs, it'd be from like a homeless person or something. I wasn't prepared for like a pretty girl that I grew up with to have a needle and to be offering me something. And as soon as I did it, I was hooked right there. Like, everyone told me drugs are bad, but at that time I thought, wow, this feels really good. I feel like maybe that's something for future people to maybe realize, like, it's not always going to be a homeless person or a bad person that's going to be offering it to you. It's going to be people you grew up with. And it's not bad. It's going to feel really good. Actually, it's going to feel really too good, because I ended up losing all my priorities, like, and that's all I ended up caring about. I stole, I borrowed money from everyone I could. I did things I didn't think I'd ever do just because I made that my #1 priority. After a couple of years of doing that, I got kicked out of, I did end up going to SMCC. I got kicked out of there. My parents had had enough. They're like, we can't do this anymore. We can't help you. We can't do anything unless you go get some help. So I went to Mercy Detox, and I got clean. And I actually had 4.5 years of sobriety, and was doing really good for a long time. I thought that was like all past me. I didn't think I was ever gonna do drugs ever again. And like one of the hardest things when you go into recovery is you have to stop talking to like the people that you used with and stuff. And like one of my best friends growing up, he'd always hit me up and I'd talk to him and stuff sometimes, but it got to the point where he was always using drugs and always asking to borrow money. And for like 2 days straight, he called me a bunch of times and I never picked up. And I found out a couple of days later after that he hung himself, and that really weighed heavy on my conscience, and I felt guilty. Like maybe if I just picked up one of those calls, I could have done something about that. And the night of his wake, I got really drunk and I ended up getting an OUI. And at the time I was selling cars, like I had my own apartment. I had a beautiful girlfriend I thought I was gonna marry, and I ended up losing my job because I got the OUI. 2 weeks later, I ended up totaling my car. So I thought I was a drug addict and I could drink alcohol, but that wasn't the case. Like, everything's kind of like, when you're addicted to kind of everything. Yeah, then I just fell into like a deep hole after that. I felt like I lost everything. Like I lost my job, my apartment, my car, the girl I thought I was gonna be with forever. And I thought it would be better to switch to Oxycontin instead of drinking all the time. Maybe I could get my girlfriend and stuff back. But that lasted about 2 weeks until I had to progress to heroin to like afford my habit. And then it was like around this time, heroin started switching to fentanyl. And I was just in a bad place, and I ended up overdosing 15 times that year. And I don't know how many of those, probably only a couple of them were accidental, because I just didn't care at that point. I ended up selling drugs to support my habit. Some other things happened, and there's this girl that I thought I was helping out because she was getting ripped off all the time, and I ended up giving her something, and then I found out a couple of days later she ended up dying. And at that time, I just stopped caring about everything. Like, I didn't care if I was hanging out with sleazy people because I felt like I was a sleazebag myself. Like I stopped associating my family. I stopped doing everything. I just didn't care. And then I ended up getting arrested for selling drugs. And it was actually kind of a blessing because it got me back in. My parents didn't give up on me. They ended up bailing me out. And I tried getting sober, but it was hard. And I slipped up a couple times. I went back to jail and got put on a thing called drug court, which is kind of like an intense form of probation. And since then, I've been doing really well. I got out during the coronavirus, and it was kind of hard because at the time I was like isolated, and like it's hard to do it alone. Like my parents were there to support me, and but like just not being able to see anyone, and like I struggle with codependency too. Like I just hate being alone. Like I usually like jump from relationship to relationship, and like although I wasn't doing drugs, I didn't like take the time to like fix myself and like the things that are like the root of my addiction. So I ended up relapsing again and going to jail. And since I've gotten out, I've been at the Courage House this time, and I got 6 months sober on Friday coming up. Yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, I've been to a couple sober houses through my road recovery, and I've never been to a place like this that's such a positive atmosphere for addicts. Like all the guys in the house are actually like trying to work on themselves and be sober, and the community's really supportive. Like with all you guys, my first week there, I got a job at Party Time Rental. My bosses, Lisa and Mark, they're absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful they've given me an opportunity to work for them. I just found out last week I got a grant so I can go back to school, so I can get a degree to be a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, so I can try and help people going through like what I went through. And I also found out last week I'm gonna be a father. Yeah.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just been a long, crazy road to recovery, but I feel like I've been able to learn from like all my experiences, and that now I'm like in a good place and able to help and give back to others. My parents are proud of me. I have a solid group of sober friends, and I actually feel genuinely happy and optimistic about my future. And I guess I just want to wrap this up by saying that like not every person in addiction is a bad person. No one really wants to be an addict. That whole time I was using, I was ashamed and wanted nothing more than to get sober and make my family proud. But it's not like you can just wake up one day and stop doing drugs. Like everybody needs some help sometime. And sometimes you just need to open up and look deep inside yourself to work on things. Like not every day is going to be a good day, but you need to focus on those little things that are good. And sometimes all we need is a chance or a little help that can literally change somebody's whole life, like what the Courage House has done for me. Yeah, that's it. I'd like to thank you guys for inviting me here and listening to me speak, though.
Thank you.
I know we were on kind of a time limit.
Yeah,
so,
that's okay. Go ahead.
I
We
won't
got
speak
time.
too long. I just wanted to say that I am thankful for the Courage House and places like the Courage House. I consider it an unmet need. There's not a lot of places that provide immediately some form of stability, a social network, food, clothing, help finding medical care. So for somebody who's an addict and coming into a place, it basically, it gives you every unmet need that a person in active addiction would have. And at that point, your chances of success increase dramatically. I know that, I've been there since January. I know that the people who own the Courage House and represent it value the relationship with the church. We know that you guys have been an active proponent in them opening, and we appreciate that. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming over on a Sunday morning and sharing your stories with us, your lives with us, and reminding us of the stigma that even occurs in our own lives, those of us who even try hard, and forgive us for when we have done that too. And we're just so glad to call you our neighbors and our beloved. You're not addicts to us, you're not that, you are beloved. So let us indeed take some time now in silence, just breathing together, knowing that we are beloved together in this world. Loving God, for the gift that we have received this morning of story and presence, of vulnerability and truth, of a call to us to care and love. God, we are so thankful. Be with us all now, in whatever place we are in our lives, and may we know your presence there in amazing and unexpected ways. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
His ways. all my fears away. Thy hand in sight of all my foes doth still my table spread. My cup with blessings overflows. Thine oil anoints my head. The sure provisions of my God attend me all my days. Oh, may thy house be my abode, and all my work be praise. There would I find a settled rest, while others go and come. No more a stranger or a guest, but like a child at home.
Thank you so much, Jonas. And what a great last line of that. No longer a stranger or a guest, but a child at home. Is there anything else we can ask for? Thank you so much. Can I have the children to come forward, please? Who have I got? Oh, there's Amy. Out of the blocks, right? How are you, madam? You like flowers, don't you? Yeah, you have a pretty flowered coat, and now you're wearing a flowered dress. I love them too. Hi, Gwen, how are you? Hey, Walter, how are you guys doing? You doing all right? Well, you guys are going to talk today about a king. Do you know what a king is? It's someone who's in charge of a country, kind of like our president, but not really. Do you guys know the word vote? Have you heard that a lot? You've probably voted on things. Has anybody in your house ever said to you, do you want pancakes or waffles? Or do you want this or that, right? And you get to say, oh, I want one of them, right? That's kind of like voting. It's where we decide if we want something, right? We vote for our president here in this country. We vote for our representatives. Oh, we vote for a lot of things. Actually, we have a vote coming up pretty soon. We've even got somebody in church. I don't know if she's here this morning, though. There she is, way back. Sorry, you're behind some heads. Ginny, raise your hand again. Ginny's running for town council, which means she's going to be, hopefully again, she is now, but hopefully again, one of those people that help us make a lot of good decisions in town, like where we have schools and how much we spend on that, and are our streets in good shape so we don't have big potholes in them, and a lot of details, let me tell you. And you might, if you look around town, you might see some signs for Ginny, right? Because we have to vote on whether we want her in office or not, to hold that office again, and a bunch of other people too, right? Now I'm going to get in trouble for doing politics in church, aren't I? But now we're going to lose our 501c3 over this, right? Didn't say any political parties. So that's where we vote. But with a king, he just gets to be king. This time, the one that you're going to talk about gets anointed. That's a big word, isn't it? Do you have any idea what anointed means? No. It's as if I took a bottle of oil. You know what oil is, right? Like olive oil that we cook with. And I poured it over your head. That's anointed. Please don't do this at home, okay? It requires a lot of Dawn dishwashing liquid to get out, trust me, okay? But that's what a prophet would do, would come and say, all right, God says you're the one that's supposed to be king now, and I'm going to show this to you by pouring oil over your head. Very snazzy, huh? Well, we don't do that now so much, right? But that's really important because that person got to be king because God says, I want you to do something really important. I want you to care for the people. Here in church with the adults today, we're going to talk about caring for the earth, but you guys are going to talk about people who care for people. And that's very special when they do that. Okay? And you know what? Even though you all aren't kings, you might think you're kings and queens, but you're not. Trust me on this one, okay? We've all tried it. King for a day, maybe, right? Or queen for a day. But you guys are all special because you can do something special for other people too. You can care for people. What's one thing you can do to show that you care for somebody? Share something with them, right? Help them out if they need it. There's lots of things. All right, let's pray. Loving God, we are all wonderful and special people in your eyes, and we all can care for each other. Help us to do that in amazing ways every day. All this we ask in your name. Amen. All right, you want to head with Misty and Claire? All right, Clara and Misty, thank you. As I go to read the scripture this morning, I do want to point out to you that the scripture from Matthew is from a translation of the Bible that I just found and I'm going to use more of, called the First Nations Version. And it was translated by someone who belongs to a native tribe, and I can't remember which one it is right now. I didn't write that down, but I will get that. And just a wonderful way to think about things. You know, I've been doing a lot of that, changing words, you know, using different words. First, to be inclusive of everyone. But also, even with, you know, changing the Lord's Prayer, we're praying one out of New Zealand right now. And as much as I also value tradition, I know that when we say the same thing again and again, we lose a lot of its value sometimes, and we need to hear it differently so we can even think about what we love in a new way. So that's what I think about all these translations, is that there's not one that is the translation. There are many translations, and they all teach us. So let us listen for God's word to us today. First from Proverbs. The one who lives alone is self-indulgent, showing contempt for all who have sound judgment. And then from Matthew 12. While Creator sets free, the name for Jesus, was speaking to the people, his mother and siblings were outside wanting to talk with him. Someone noticed and told him, "Your relatives are here, waiting outside to see you." "Who are my relatives?" he asked the person who told him. Then he looked around the circle of people, lifted his hands toward his followers and said, "Here they are, the ones who walk in the way of my parent from the spirit world above are my relatives, my bearer parent and siblings." May God bless these words to our living. We have been rethinking because major events spurn us to rethink what we believe and what we value. Loss often does that too. But so does gain. When a child comes into our lives, when a new loved one does, or even a friend. And COVID has reminded us that we are people of rethinking because we have had to rethink a lot. Now, many times Christians purport themselves to be the people of the truth, the answer, certainty. And we have that wrong. We are people of questions, of community conversations, of thinking and rethinking, of getting it wrong and trying again and trying to be even more loving in a new way of thinking. I was fortunate to have my mother go and hear a college chaplain from Dordt College in Iowa the other day, and she reported back to me. We do this often. We report back to each other when we've heard somebody interesting. So thanks, Mom. I see you're on this morning. Thanks, Mom, for this. But this college chaplain in Iowa the other day asked a group of college students who regularly attended church. Now, these are not the nuns. These are not the ones that have dropped out of church or said goodbye, you know. And in Iowa, you can say there's probably a good group that are still going to church there. And especially at Dordt College, which is a college of the Christian Reformed Church, and who has instilled in their children from day one that they better be in church on Sunday. But these kids had still listened or decided they wanted to be there. But he asked them this question. What would make you not attend church? You know, usually we ask the ones who aren't attending, what would make you attend, right? But I thought this was a great question to kids who are there. What would make you not attend? And they said, oh, we know very clearly, because we see it, an unchristian attitude. And he said, define that for me. They said, well, what we would expect for kids of their age is first an attitude toward LGBTQ that's exclusive, or that excludes them from anything. They said that they consider an unchristian attitude. But after that, this was their list, and it came quick. People are too judgmental. People are too hypocritical. They're tethered to one political party. They're out of touch and insensitive with what is going on. That's an unchristian attitude. Did you hear any theology in that? Did you hear any, beliefs that we should espouse? Or doctrine, at least? There's beliefs in there. The beliefs that everybody's loved and everybody belongs. This is what the 20-somethings who are sticking around in churches are watching for and watching us. This is hard. Because we like to be certain that we know things. We like to have concrete things, but I think COVID, and that's just one of the things that upset all that. That what we've known, we cannot be certain about. And how do we live a life that's not based on certainty? We were given that misnomer, I think, that when we were children, is that life is about certain things. And so we come this second Sunday now in rethinking to rethink about creation. And last week I asked you to rethink the creation stories and the word subdue that's in them. Rethink the idea and that we are called to subdue, that we are called to take away the voice of creation. Because if we do it for creation, we do it for anybody else. Once you get used to it, why not do it to anybody? And we do it to everybody. But right now, if we listen to the voice of creation, we, as the scriptures say, are hearing it groan. So today I want to talk about a relationship with creation. And again, if we go back to these scriptures, we hear those words that we heard last week about dominion over, as if we were the pinnacle of that sixth day of creation. That when those words came on the sixth day, at the end of the sixth day of that six-day song, that were very good, that we were somehow the very good instead of the whole of it being very good. We're not the pinnacle. We're all in this together. And it's no longer enough to just say, well, I'll try a little harder in caring for creation. We need a completely new relationship with this earth and this world. Our old relationship needs to end, of subduing and dominion, of calling it a resource, of taking what we need. We need to speak of creation as kin. Currently, creation is a commodity, isn't it? Even if we'd say, well, it's personally not a commodity. For me, it is. Our life says just the opposite. Our use of fossil fuels, we build houses that are the best for us, and when we do that, everybody, like they come through and they strip off the topsoil, don't they? How does that help the earth? Then we plant lawns. Well, most of us, some of us just let the weeds grow, but we often plant lawns that require water, chemicals, and mowing. Do you guys notice that? We pass a turf farm in North Gorham, and I just think if you watch the ground where the turf farm is, it's now looks like a bowl because they've taken off enough dirt that it's lower than the surrounding ground now. Why? When faced with climate disaster, we can first say, well, we have to be careful. There's going to be an economic impact. And then we let ourselves and our elected officials get away with doing hardly anything at all. We insist on food out of season. We enjoy finding something that could never grow in this climate to eat. We even plant annuals, and I love annuals. Some of mine are up here, right? And we often treat plants like annuals, even though they're perennials. We take no responsibility for taking cuttings of them and overwintering them. We completely forget, block out from us, that energy and water in the winter are needed to start these things so they're all ready for us in April. There's so much that our lives are built on now that we need to rethink and unbuild. And I want to let you know, I didn't choose the word family when I ask us to rethink about our relationship with creation and call it family. Because family often are the people that we're stuck with whether we like it or not, and we can ignore them especially if they live a bit of a distance, we can do that. And even though now we have chosen family, which is wonderful, and we talk about this as our church family too, right? I intentionally want to use the word kin. We've moved from kingdom to kingdom for that reason. That hierarchical view of what Jesus was talking about, of the kingdom of God, to the kingdom of God, to the surrounding and the all-included. Because it's about relationship, not hierarchy. It's not about entitlement. It's about relationship. And kin, when I went to look up the definition, it says, descended from a common ancestor. And therefore, I can't think of a better word for us to use about the earth. If you want to use the myth stories of our Genesis, that is that we're all descended from the commonness, I love the way that we tell this story of creation, and this myth of creation is that we descend from the hands that formed us, the earth. In Native American stories, there's a variety. There's always a creator, and the ones here in Maine is there's a turtle involved, which is fabulous. Or in science, if you want to use that, our common ancestor is carbon. Whether it's faith or science, God or carbon, both show us how interdependent we are. And there's actually a great redefining of kin that came from video games. And I feel like, I'm admitting something out loud here too. I have never liked video games. It is that genetic slip that I have that my daughter is still ashamed of me to this day. I just never have liked them. But they have a thing in these video games that you have kin. And they're not relation or anything like that. It is a character or characters that you identify with that help you express yourself and even comfort you. In the Native American tradition, they would probably call those spirit animals or guides or your soul. Because kin is not about bloodlines, it's about love lines. And as people of faith, we are all about love lines. That is a wonderful word for God. Then there is no reason that anyone or anything is left out. Canada even acknowledges that with the Indigenous people that lived there. This is a quote from what they have said publicly. Indigenous people have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual relationship with their traditionally occupied lands, territories, waters, and coastal seas, and other resources, and to uphold their responsibilities to future generations. You hear that in that First Nations version of our Matthew story today. These new words, this creator sets free that we call Jesus, and the word relatives. When I lived on the Omaha reservation, the Omahas, that is the word I heard the most was relatives. You talked about everyone that way, and you knew going back how you were connected to everyone. The worst thing to be was unconnected. I tell the story that when they found out that my husband at that time was an orphan, I'd never used that word for him, but that both of his parents had died by the time he was 18, they held him in a certain regard because an orphan is just the worst thing to be in their community without family. Imagine not having your mother or your father or someone who would come and take over that position when they died. Who are my kin, is what Jesus asked. Now, that's a question for us. And we may list our family and extended family and as many second and third cousins as we possibly can do. And we even do that here. We know that some of you are all related to each other, and we are glad for that. But we as people of faith are called to talk about our common ancestor, in whom we live and move and have our being. And we as a congregation need to rethink that, because proposals will be coming before us for heat pumps and solar panels, and we could just speak of them in economic terms. Or we could say this is a part of us kinning the earth. Copenhagen will happen at the end of October, the UN Climate Change Conference. And I heard someone say this is the 26th one of them, and I haven't noticed any difference. Lots is said, targets are made, but it is our job to hold us all to that. Earth as a common ancestor. It said in the video game thing that kin help you reflect your best self, be your best self, and provide you comfort. I think that right now Earth is showing us who we truly are. And we need to work hard to help Earth reflect its best self so that it can help us do the same. How can we kin the earth so that we can help ourselves express the faith, the caring, and love? Because if we don't do this as people of faith, what are we doing here? Are we going to act like people alone with no kin and be self-indulgent, as the Proverbs warned us? Or are we going to acknowledge that all people, all earth, everything is kin and we are theirs. Let us be people of faith. Let us pray. Loving God, for the hard work we must do, for the work that we try to avoid but we cannot, let us be your people and walk in your ways. All this we ask in your name. Amen. And let's join together and sing our hymn, When in Awe of God's Creation, and please stand if you're able. You may be seated. We got lots. You can tell it's the fall again.
Hi, good morning. The Board of Missions is inviting First Parish to participate in the Neighbors in Need special mission offering on October 3rd, which is next Sunday. This is an annual offering collected by the United Church of Christ that supports ministries of justice and compassion throughout the United States. 1/3 of the Neighbors in Need funds support the Council for American Indian Ministry. 2/3 of this offering is used by the UCC's Justice and Witness ministries to support a variety of justice initiatives, advocacy efforts, and direct service projects through grants. Neighbors in Need grants are awarded to UCC churches and organizations doing justice work in their communities. And here's one example of one such project. When LGBTQ individuals near the campus of Clemson University in the areas of upstate South Carolina unexpectedly find themselves without a home or a place to feel safe, Peace Congregational United Church of Christ will be ready to meet them. Congregation members and the Clemson community are working side by side in the design and construction of a tiny house, a mobile residency for a person in the LGBTQ community who is no longer welcome at home. The $20,000 project is in progress with the help of a $10,000 grass top grant from UCC Justice and Witness Ministries. The first occupant could be ready to find refuge there in January. So please consider donating next Sunday. There are special collection envelopes by the back doors and by the front door, and there'll be some downstairs in Fellowship Hall as well. And there are directions in the bulletin and in the email blast about how to donate online as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for doing these little spots for us, not only to tell us where this goes that we are a part of, but also I hope to spur our own thinking. A tiny house, y'all, we can do that. We have a parking lot. We have places to put these things. Like, it's great ideas, great ideas. And who is going to school full time, I believe? Yeah, anyway. But these are great ideas. And what are the needs in our neighborhood, too? Because we would be eligible for a grant also if we had an idea. Thank you, Amy. And now we come to bring our gifts, to do what we are doing now here in this community and this place in the many ways that we're doing it, and reminding ourselves to give and to think through what else needs to be done? What else can we be doing? What are we called to do at this place and time? In the ways that we give with the plates at the edges of the sanctuary here and the online instructions that are there, what we do is we give so we celebrate God's love and acknowledge that we are God's hands and feet. Let us give together. God, through our giving, whether it be reluctant or regular, whether we are inspired or forgetful, God, work through all of our giving so that we may realize we are one with this whole world as we work together in your love. All this we ask in your name. Amen. If you're standing, you may be seated. And as we remember this month, actually, I believe it's September 30 is Recovery Day for this country. They've decided that. I have a prayer here that I ask that you join in with me to begin our prayers of the people. If you'll please pray the bold. John O'Donohue is no longer with us. He died too young and too early, but a wonderful person for prayers and blessings and feeling the earth and the people in it. So let us join together and let's pray. On its way through the innocent night, a moth is ambushed by the light, becomes glued to a window where a candle burns. Its whole self, its dreams of flight and all desires trapped in one glazed gaze. No longer yourself, your mind will be owned and steered from elsewhere now. You will sacrifice anything to dance one more to the haunted music with your fatal beloved who owns the eyes to your heart. May some glimmer of outside light reach your eyes to help you recognize how you have fallen for a vampire. May you crash hard and soon onto real ground again, where this fundamentalist shell might start to crack for you to hear again your own echo. Loving God, you are walking with every single person in this earth. Those who we often exclude or distance ourselves from because of the disease of addiction, God, forgive us. May we join that path that you walk to. May we speak with them and be with them, care for them, call them beloved, even when they don't want that name for themselves, because we know they do, God. We know you are at the center and core of them, and that they are very good. God, wherever we are, whenever we can, God, may we be people of your abundant love, your extravagant love. And may we call out that name, beloved, to everyone around. For those in our lives, God, that we know are caught in this cycle of addiction, God, we offer them again to you. For those among us who are walking that daily walk of recovery, God, we celebrate their strength and know that it is a daily task for them. Thank you, God, for their presence among us that teaches us even if we don't know their life path. God, may our words and actions and institutional structures of stigma be torn down. And may we build them on your love. God, in this world and country in which we live, this earth upon which we live and breathe and have our being, God, we think of all those who don't have a calm and bright and warm place to be this morning. We think of those who are in hospital, those who are frightened to come out of their homes because of COVID, those who have been sent back to Haiti, those who don't know where they can live, where they can truly live. God, let us take your eye view of this world without borders and boundaries and fences, without color or race or language. God, may we see with your eyes of love. For those around us, God, that we are called to care for, those who are recovering from physical injury, those who are walking that path of recovery in cancer, those who walk long and chronic paths with their health. God, may they know your presence with them today and every day. For those who grieve, God, we remember this morning these 1,000 family, friends, all that are connected with these people that we represent here. God, be with them in their daily life as they find a new way to live. God, for all that we need to do, that you are calling us to, may we do it without excuse, but rather in your strength. Hear us now as we join our voices together, and you teach us again through the prayer that we now pray. Eternal Spirit, earth maker, pain bearer, life giver, source of all that is and that shall be, parent of us all, loving God, in whom is heaven, the hallowing of your name echo through the universe, the way of your justice be followed by the peoples of the world, your heavenly will be done by all created beings, your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen. And stand, please, if you are able, and join in our hymn, Touch the Earth Lightly. Indeed, we are called now to go out and as one and create one in this world with all that is and all that will be. And as we do that together, God's peace will be with us now and always. Amen.